Disastrous Air India crash of 171. Now, out of 33 Boeing Dreamliners that AI.
This plane was called a dream, like literally. Its name was the Dreamliner, and it was cool until June 12, 2025, when it suddenly turned into a total nightmare. People used to say it was uncrashable. That's how high-tech it was. That's how much trust people had in it. But then it crashed. And what's even scarier? Investigators now think one tiny device may have caused the whole disaster. Let's rewind a bit. Before the smoke, before the headlines, before the horror, let's talk about why the Boeing 787 Dreamliner was such a big deal in the first place. Back in 2011, Boeing launched the Dreamliner with a goal. Don't just build another plane, build the plane of the future. This thing wasn't just a metal tube with wings. It was packed with new materials, smarter tech, and better fuel efficiency. It was lighter thanks to a carbon fiber body. It was quieter with cool mood lighting. It had bigger windows that could dim at the press of a button. Even the air inside felt better. Flyers actually said they didn't feel as sick or jet lagged. Why? Well, because Boeing adjusted the cabin pressure and humidity to feel more like being on the ground. It sounds weird, but it actually helped your body chill out during those long flights. People loved this plane. Airlines from all over the world were lining up to buy it. And we're not just talking about your basic budget airlines. Even royalty, billionaires, and presidents wanted their own Dreamliners. It was basically the Tesla of planes. Over 300 were sold in just the first few years. That's insane. Everyone wanted to ride it. Pilots said it was fun to fly. Passengers felt fancy in it. And Boeing? They were rolling in cash. But when you hype something that much, everything has to work perfectly. One tiny issue could be the difference between a safe trip and total disaster. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. Not long after people started flying the Dreamliner, problems started popping up. Let's start with the batteries. These weren't regular plane batteries. They were lithium-ion, kind of like your phone's battery, but way bigger, until they started catching fire. One Dreamliner in Japan literally caught fire while parked at the airport. Another one had to make an emergency landing mid-air because the battery overheated. It was a big deal. The US government got so scared, they grounded every Dreamliner in the country until Boeing fixed it. That had never happened before for a plane that new. Eventually, Boeing redesigned the batteries. People thought the worst was over. But then came the fuselage cracks. That's the main body of the plane, the part that holds everyone inside. Turns out, tiny cracks were forming where different parts of the plane were joined together. Not huge cracks, but tiny, microscopic ones that could grow over time. And that's bad, especially when you're flying at 35,000 feet. More maintenance, more fear, more questions. After the structural stuff, pilots started reporting weird glitches. The plane software sometimes froze. Autopilot messed up. Screens went blank. One pilot even said the entire system rebooted in midair, like your laptop crashing during a school assignment. Boeing fixed what they could, patched things up, and kept the planes flying. Passengers kept boarding, and life went on. Until June 12, 2025. That's the day Flight AI-171 left the runway in India and never came back. Flight AI-171 was a Boeing 787 Dreamliner taking off from India. It was supposed to be a regular flight. Families, students, tourists, even a former politician were on board. 241 people total. A few minutes after takeoff, the plane dropped out of the sky. It crashed straight into a college hostel, killing 19 people on the ground. Dozens more were injured, many of them students who were just hanging out in their dorm rooms. People said the fireball was so huge, it lit up the whole block. Smoke, screaming, sirens. It was chaos. And here's the worst part. Only one person survived. Just one. A British man sitting near the emergency exit managed to crawl out of a crack in the wreckage. His brother, who was sitting nearby, didn't make it. His story gave investigators a clue. The plane broke apart midair. But why? Was it an engine problem? Did the fuel leak? Could it have been terrorism? Turns out, it might have been a tiny little thing called the ram air turbine, or RAT. You can't see it during a regular flight. It's hidden inside the body of the plane, but when things go really wrong, the RAT pops out. It spins using the wind from outside the plane, kind of like a mini windmill. It's not powerful enough to fly the whole aircraft, but it gives just enough energy to keep the basic controls running, like hydraulics, instruments, and steering. Think of it like your phone's 1% battery mode. You can't watch YouTube or scroll TikTok, but you can call 911. Well, that's the RAT. It gives you just enough power to glide the plane safely down. So it's super useful, but only in emergencies. The RAT is not supposed to deploy during takeoff. That's the worst time for extra drag or weird systems kicking in. But on June 12th, during Flight AI-171's takeoff, the RAT deployed automatically, and no one in the cockpit touched it. It just came out on its own. And that's not normal at all. Investigators now believe that a faulty sensor might have sent the wrong signal to the plane's system, so the RAT pops out mid-takeoff. And once it did, the plane started to lose speed, because when the RAT comes out, it creates drag. That's like pulling the handbrake on a bike while you're trying to go uphill. The engines suddenly had to work way harder to keep the plane climbing. Some experts believe they couldn't handle the extra pressure, or even worse, that they shut down completely. And when that happened, well, the plane didn't stand a chance. It started falling fast. To confirm their suspicions, investigators ran multiple flight simulations. They recreated the exact same flight, same speed, same weather, same flap, and gear settings. Guess what? In every simulation, the plane flew just fine. So the basic setup of the plane didn't cause the crash. That was huge. But when they added the RAT deployment into the simulation, everything changed. The plane lost lift, the engine struggled, the flight path went haywire. It became crystal clear the RAT coming out during takeoff was a game-changing error. Now the question was, how did that even happen? Investigators started going through everything: maintenance records, software updates, pilot training logs. They checked wiring, sensors, and even emails from engineers. What they're looking for is this: did Boeing know this could happen? Did Air India miss something in maintenance? Was this accident totally preventable? If the answer to any of those is yes, then people are going to get in big trouble. And it's not just technical trouble. We're talking about lawsuits, massive fines, and possibly criminal charges. But who's responsible? That's when the real drama started. And it wasn't just in India. It spread across the globe. Remember the only guy who survived the crash? That British man in seat 11A? Well, he came forward to tell his story, what he saw, what he felt, and how he crawled out of the burning wreckage. And people listened. His story gave investigators major clues. Based on where he was sitting, how he got out, and how his part of the plane separated, they figured out where the plane broke apart. That helped connect the dots. It wasn't just about one failed device. It was about the timing, the sensor glitch, and how the aircraft reacted in those critical seconds. And that's when the lawsuits began. A British law firm called Keystone jumped into action. They started representing the families of 40 British citizens who died in the crash. These weren't just basic lawsuits asking for money. The families were demanding a full explanation from Boeing, full access to maintenance logs, details about the RAT system and its history, and, most of all, justice. The case is going to court in the United Kingdom, but the decision could have a global impact. If the court finds that Boeing or Air India knew about the RAT issue or failed to fix it properly, they could be held completely responsible for the crash. And the payout? We're not just talking about a few $1,000s. It could be millions of dollars per family, not to mention damages, penalties, and possible recalls of the entire Dreamliner fleet. Back in India, things were also heating up. The Directorate General of Civil Aviation, or DGCA, immediately ordered full inspections of every single Boeing 787 Dreamliner in the Air India fleet. Pilots were pulled for special training, sensors were rechecked, emergency systems were tested again and again, and at the same time, people were demanding answers. Who missed this? Was it Boeing's engineers? Was it poor software? Or did Air India's maintenance team skip something? No one knew for sure yet, but the pressure was growing fast. And while all this was going on, the CEO of Boeing was supposed to appear at the Paris Air Show, one of the biggest aircraft events in the world. But after the crash, well, he didn't show up. A total no-show. And when people found out, Boeing's stock price dropped 9% in a single day. That's billions of dollars in losses. In London, during the famous Trooping the Colour parade, King Charles ordered a minute of silence. Senior royals wore black armbands. The British press covered the story non-stop. Back in India, Prime Minister Modi visited the crash site. He met with rescue teams and even visited the survivor in the hospital. He promised the country that everything would be investigated. And yet, that didn't stop the anger from growing. The Tata Group, which owns Air India, quickly offered compensation. 1 crore, or about $120,000, to every victim's family. Sounds generous, right? Well, not exactly. See, under international rules, called the Montreal Convention, families might actually be owed up to 1.5 crore, or $180,000, or even more, depending on what the investigation finds. And remember, this was just an interim payment, a temporary offer, not the final deal. Some families were thankful for the quick help. Others were like, this isn't enough. We lost everything. That's when legal teams, activist groups, and public opinion turned the heat up even more. So now the lawsuits are flying. Boeing's CEO is hiding, and families all over the world are demanding the truth. But how do investigators actually figure out what really happened? The answer? Black boxes. Now, despite the name, black boxes actually aren't black. Every commercial airplane has 2 of them. One is the flight data recorder, which keeps track of stuff like altitude, speed, engine power, and all the tiny movements pilots make. The other is the cockpit voice recorder, which records all the conversations between the pilots and even the background sounds, like warnings, alarms, or any unusual noises. In the case of Flight AI-171, the plane was so badly damaged that most of it was just twisted metal and ash. But after days of searching, both black boxes were found buried deep in the wreckage. And to everyone's relief, they were still intact. The boxes were sent to a special lab in Delhi, where experts downloaded the information second by second, frame by frame. At first, the data showed a normal flight. Everything looked okay. Engines were running fine, the flaps and landing gear were where they should be, and the aircraft was climbing just as expected. But suddenly, without any warning, the system logged something no one expected. RAT deployed. In the cockpit recording, one of the pilots can be heard saying something like, "Why is the RAT out?" And then all you hear are alarms and panic. They were clearly confused because that emergency device, the ram air turbine, isn't supposed to come out unless there's a major system failure. But this plane was only a few minutes into its flight. There was no emergency, at least not yet. Then the chaos began. The aircraft started slowing down. The engines were struggling. One pilot shouted, "We're losing lift," followed by a desperate Mayday call. But before the last word was finished, the recording cut out. Just like that. The whole disaster from takeoff to crash lasted only 4 minutes and 12 seconds. After the crash of Flight AI-171, the world didn't just move on. People were angry, heartbroken, and desperate for answers. What was supposed to be a safe, high-tech flight turned into one of the most horrifying disasters in recent memory. And now, the world was demanding more than just apologies. They want to change. In India, things got emotional fast. Families of the victims held candlelight vigils outside airports and government offices. Photos of loved ones were pinned to gates, with flowers and handwritten notes taped beside them. Students from the hostel where the plane crashed held a silent march, carrying signs that said things like, "We want justice," and "Never again." It wasn't just about the crash anymore. It was about trust. Trust in the system, in the airline, and in the people who were supposed to keep planes safe. In the UK, where many of the victims were from, the reaction was just as intense. News outlets ran non-stop coverage. Hey, thanks for watching. If this story shocked you, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives, and tell us in the comments, do you still trust flying on a Dreamliner?